My daughter described the nude pile-up game.
I remember playing the naked lady game.
Tonight on 48 Hours.
Children were victims.
A daycare nightmare.
Which bad thing?
Child abuse.
A woman convicted of abuse
On testimony of children.
is set free.
It is overwhelming to be unjustly incarcerated.
I'm extremely upset by it.
Now a mother's shock turns to outrage.
She is a convicted child abuser. She belongs in jail.
It was hysteria. It was not mass hysteria.
Testimony was ludicrous.
Who showed you how to put the knife in the girl's wee-wee?
But could the children have lied?
There was not a single charge.
Nude dancing.
That was believable in the smallest way.
When you live a horror, you don't forget that horror.
What really caused the end of innocence?
They were told these stories. They didn't just come up with these stories.
What will happen to a child when left in somebody else's care? 5 years ago, that fear was given a name and a face. Margaret Kelly Michaels, a New Jersey daycare teacher, jailed on 115 counts of child molestation. But just a few weeks ago, in a stunning reversal, her conviction was overturned. She went free. Her case has raised disturbing questions about justice and about the wavering line between fact and fantasy in the mind of a child. The question persists: what really happened? Tonight, in a 48 Hours exclusive, you will meet Kelly Michaels as she faces her first hours of freedom, and you will hear the graphic stories of some of the children in a tragic case that, for all concerned, marked the end of innocence.
Maplewood, New Jersey, outside New York City. The kind of place real estate agents love to describe as a great place to raise kids. And it was.
It's scary to think that something like that can happen out here.
Until 8 years ago, when 51 of Maplewood's kids started speaking on tape about the unspeakable, telling investigators about bad things. A child's understatement for a parent's worst nightmare: sexual abuse.
These kids were terrified.
What bad thing?
Parents were victims, and most of all, the children were victims.
It started very slowly with nightmares.
It was the most horrible thing in the world I could imagine.
Kelly Michaels was 22, a teacher at the We Care Daycare Center in Maplewood, when she too became part of the nightmare.
They just pulled me out of my life and brought this horrible charge.
Something happened at this daycare center in 1985, something powerful and traumatic that changed dozens of lives. But just who did it and what did they do? Answers to those questions may be different, possibly even more painful than the people of Maplewood originally believed. In 1988, Kelly Michaels, a self-described nice Catholic girl who aspired to be an actress, was convicted of dozens of horrible charges of sexual abuse.
Nude dancing, implements inserted into children, that type of thing.
115 counts in all. involving 4- and 5-year-olds.
I'm absolutely innocent.
She was sentenced to 47 years in prison.
All rise, please. Quiet in court. Good afternoon.
Now, 5 years later, 31-year-old Kelly Michaels may get out of prison. The New Jersey Court of Appeals has put Michaels' guilt in question. It ruled she did not get a fair trial. The court overturned her conviction and criticized much of the evidence used to put her away.
Wendy Goldberg, Assistant Prosecutor of Essex County.
Now, the same prosecutors who locked her up may have to let her go.
Prosecutor appearing on behalf of the state.
After this bail hearing in Newark, New Jersey.
I hope we walk out of here with Kelly.
Kelly's mother, Marilyn Michaels, and the Michaels family.
We'll just be glad to take her out of here today. Have her start her life again. I mean, the conviction's been nullified. We have friends on our side. Her story's getting out. So for us, it's almost coming back somewhat triumphant.
The person had been convicted on charges that no one has ever been sent down for since the Salem witch trials.
The record should reflect that Ms. Michaels is now in court.
Wall Street Journal reporter Dorothy Rabinowitz was a freelance writer when she began investigating this case.
There was not a single charge of which this young woman stood accused that was believable in the smallest way.
We are here based on the reversal of Ms. Michaels' conviction on all counts by a unanimous court.
Michaels' attorney, Robert Rosenthal.
Despite what the prosecutor says, or expectedly, I don't believe there's anything left in the case. We're here today to ask for release on her own recognizance.
Your Honor, we feel most strongly that the strength of the state's case is not diminished, and that the likelihood of conviction is extremely high.
Prosecutor Glenn Goldberg wants to retry the case.
Your Honor, it's a request of the prosecutor's office at this time that the bail that was set prior to the trial be reinstated, namely in the amount of $250,000.
That might be too high for the Michaels, and Goldberg wants restrictions.
Court order that this defendant not associate with or be in the presence of children under the age of 13.
I spent a good portion of last evening reading the 84-page opinion.
Judge Joseph Falcone must now size up what's left of the state's case.
Believe that the likelihood of conviction has been diminished.
He sets a lower bail.
$75,000 bond with a 10% cash alternative and the special conditions imposed.
Michaels is now a few hours from freedom. Outside the courtroom,
Can you tell what it's been like leading up to this day?
it's a tale of two mothers.
I just want to get her out of here right now, as soon as I can.
Marilyn Michaels
I'm extremely upset by it.
and a Maplewood parent who wants her identity concealed.
To me, she is a convicted child abuser. She belongs in jail.
Justice has been served today.
What makes you say that?
She's going to be released.
It was my belief that you go to trial and the jury finds a person guilty, and that's the way the justice system works. And obviously, that isn't the way the justice system works.
Finally, her bail is paid and Kelly Michaels is released.
Anything you'd like to say? Not now.
She heads to New York City for a reunion with her family.
Look at that beautiful skyline.
People she has not been able to embrace for 5 years.
There's nothing in our lives that have prepared us for this day. You understand? I was at Bowl of Chain hours ago. This is a whole new experience for me. Oh,
We appreciate your
you in the world. Look. Nice. This is great. Yes, I go. She hasn't even seen the sky for so long, let alone the skyline, huh?
Before her arrest, Kelly Michaels wanted to live in New York City.
Years and years and years and years in the same prison yard, same prison yard, same prison yard.
You think
you're never?
It's
I know.
over.
I know.
It's over. Look at me. It's over.
But it's not over.
When you live a horror, you don't forget that horror.
not for the people who believe Kelly Michaels is a child abuser.
We will now focus our full attention and energies on rectifying what we perceive to be an erroneous result.
Consider Miss Michaels a dangerous person?
We did then and we do now.
From childhood.
Although she is free, Kelly Michaels is still charged with more than 100 counts of child abuse.
This monster is back out on the streets.
And she could face trial again. But if she's innocent, what happened? Who is she and what really took place at the We Care Daycare Center? More on that story coming up.
I'm on a roll.
You know how later in the morning you can start to run out of steam? Well, I've actually found a breakfast that helps keep me going. Breakfast with grape nuts. I heard try it for a week, so I did, and I feel so good. Turns out grape nuts is a fat-free, natural energy source, and it has a natural, crunchy taste. But really, you've got to try it for a week yourself. See how good you feel all morning.
Breakfast with post-grape nut cereal helps keep you going strong all morning long.
It isn't normal to make a sports coupe look this classic. But that's how we build the Mazda MX-6, because we just thought some people might appreciate beauty that lasts for years.
Everybody needs some money sometime. Everybody
When you need money fast.
Hello, Sue.
Come to Western Union. We send more money to more people in more places than anyone else. Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
Lasers. Satellites. Cellular data networks. What exactly are we preparing for? UPS introduces Total Track, the only tracking system that can confirm delivery of your air and designated ground packages coast to coast in seconds.
Was signed for at 9:26 this morning by Mr.
The arms race may be over, but the package race is just heating up.
For a woman's skin, you've never seen anything like it. It was discovered at the Pond's Institute. Pond's new dramatic results skin smoothing capsules. With the miracle of Nutrium, a complex containing essential lipids found in healthy young skin. Your skin is retexturized in seconds. Pond's new dramatic results skin smoothing capsules. For more information, call the Institute at 1-800-34-PONDS.
Only one night on one stage.
It's not all truck driving and cheating.
Lori Morgan, Kathy Mattea, Tammy Wynette, Trisha Yearwood, and 70 of country's hottest ladies. The television event of a lifetime. Don't miss the 2-hour special Women of Country, Thursday starting at 8 on CBS. Friday, a confession could ruin a good cop.
My career is on the line.
Unless Lee Horsley can trap a murderer.
I think Harris is going to kill me.
Get out of the house.
Bodies of evidence.
Your whole life is just changing. And I think you need to see something completely different. I think you want to leave that behind you.
This is lovely.
There are no beauty parlors or even mirrors in the maximum security prison where Kelly Michaels spent the last 5 years.
My opinion is you ought to just go for it.
Freedom should be a cinch.
Oh my goodness.
But it could take some getting used to.
After 5 years, what's freedom like for you?
Oh my goodness. It is overwhelming. Because you're going from an environment where you're absolutely oppressed, you're absolutely limited. And suddenly, I'm able to be with my family, and there's choices, and there's public, and it's overwhelming. And the anger can come back as well, because in prison, and to survive, when I didn't see any end in sight, you have to suppress that anger, to be unjustly incarcerated, knowing you can't do anything about it. And also, the people still even believe this nonsense.
Who showed you how to put the knife in the girl's wee wee? If I guessed it, would you tell me who? No. Why not?
Because nobody told me.
Once upon a time, before she came to We Care, Kelly Michaels wanted to be an actress. She had starred in high school and college plays in Pittsburgh. her hometown. So in 1984, she decided to try to act in New York. She could only afford to live in suburban New Jersey, and she took a job at the We Care Daycare Center to support herself.
I felt like I was doing something good and positive, and I could be near New York and make my plans for the future, which was not going to be in childcare.
Kelly Michaels was hired as a teacher's aide here at We Care and was quickly promoted to teacher. She only worked here 7 months before she moved across town to a better paying school. And then, just a few days into her new job, the police knocked at her door.
They just said that they're investigating a charge of child abuse. And that was enough to just totally destroy me.
So what did you do?
I just remember trying to get myself together. I kept saying, well, I don't know what you're talking about. This has got to be some terrible mistake. And they kept assuring me that there were no formal charges. They just wanted to talk.
So what happened at the end of the day?
Well, I took a lie detector test. And they assured me this was a final thing. And if I passed this lie detector, I would be a free woman, and this pretty much would be forgotten. I took it, I passed it, they had no choice, they let me go. I believed it was over.
So she was released while the first charge was investigated. The case against Kelly Michaels began with a boy in the doctor's office getting his temperature taken. He said, "That's what my teacher does to me." His mother was alarmed because the nurse's aide was using a rectal thermometer. Other children were questioned, and soon dozens of kids were saying Kelly Michaels abused them too, with knives and forks and spoons and other instruments. But there was never any physical evidence of abuse. Kelly Michaels was convicted on the testimony of children.
These kids were interviewed, and if one listens, not even taking my word for it, or the prosecutor's word for it, or even the parents after all this time, but go back to those initial tapes, those interviews, that's the freshest material.
Come here, let me ask you a question. Sit down.
The children were questioned by social workers, police, and psychologists.
Did anyone ever do this to the boys in school with the fork? Now, if you remember, tell me, because I need you to tell me. Because your mommy would want you to tell me. She'd be very proud of you if you told me the truth, okay? The fork on the penis. Did anybody ever do that to anybody in school? You sure? How about the wooden spoon on the penis? How about with the knife? Did anybody ever do this in the boy's rear end?
They were told a story repeatedly in the most intrusive, to me, oh my God, the most horrible things. They were told these stories. They didn't just come up with these stories.
Who's this now? Kelly? How'd you like Kelly?
In these early interviews, the children either deny anything happened or tell stories they admit they heard from someone else.
So how was Kelly? She was bad?
I like her, but she was doing nothing to children.
What was she doing to the children?
I don't know.
No? How do you know she was doing bad things?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Who told you? Lou?
Lou is Lou Fonalaris, a social worker who did many of the initial interviews. He declined to speak with us.
I do believe, after 8 years of litigation, of therapy, of what's going on with their own parents and the prosecutors, that they believe a story that there was a bad person named Kelly who hurt kids. They're not lying, but that doesn't mean it happened.
There is not one doubt in my mind that my child was abused by Kelly Michaels.
This Maplewood parent wants to remain anonymous to protect her child. This is from a 1991 interview.
I blame myself for bringing my kid there every day.
Her child never told her of abuse until after the allegations against Kelly were made.
I would like to know even more about what happened there. I don't think some of the children had the words to describe all that went on.
All of them learned that something absolutely dreadful had happened to them, something unspeakable.
Writer Dorothy Rabinowitz became a supporter after researching the case.
So that the same nursery teacher whom they'd loved and whom they ran to greet with open arms when they saw her had now been converted into their blackest dreams.
Rabinowitz says the children were abused.
The children were, of course, molested. They were not molested by Kelly Michaels.
By the very people who meant to protect them.
They were abused and perhaps scarred for the rest of their lives by a trial process, because they will go through life believing that something dreadful had happened to them sexually, and this changes one.
What you see before you are the trial team and the senior staff members of the Essex County Prosecutor's Office.
The prosecution team, led by Glenn Goldberg and Essex County Prosecutor Clifford Minor, has refused numerous requests for an interview with us.
As the prosecutor, my duty is to see that justice is done.
At a recent news conference, the team was asked about the children's testimony.
What about the court's findings of improprieties in the interviewing of the children?
The trial court and the jury found the children to be credible. Nothing has happened between the time that they heard the evidence and they heard all of the evidence and the present date to render the children any less credible.
If Kelly Michaels is innocent, how was she convicted? Next.
Did you ever
The Lone Ranger.
Who was that masked man who stopped the horses?
I don't know, but he give me this.
Still going. Nothing outlasts the Energizer battery. It keeps going and going and...
Don't blink, Sheila.
All my dreams are coming true. No, they are.
And don't look away.
Don't even bother putting on a wedding dress because there isn't going to be a wedding today.
You've got one last chance.
I'm getting married in 20 minutes, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
But can you afford to take it?
I'll see you at the altar.
A child abandoned.
So I can adopt her?
What happens when the mother returns?
You can't give somebody a baby and then just take her back.
And all new picket fences Thursday.
Kelly Michaels was convicted on testimony of 19 children.
2 years after she was charged, Kelly Michaels went to trial.
Each child came in and told the story in their own way, in their own words.
And those children told convincing stories of abuse.
My daughter described what has become known as the nude pile-up game.
At the trial, children described the nude pile-up game in which they allegedly rolled around on the floor naked. But what became compelling testimony in court started out as a child's tale. This is an early description of the pile-up game.
You want to tell me how the game gets played?
Yeah, then you take all the chairs. Then you have to put them on your head.
Put the chairs on your head?
Yeah.
You sure?
The children were primed and prepared to appear at trial.
Kelly Michaels' supporters insist prosecutors molded the children's stories to fit a theory about what happened at the daycare center.
They closed the daycare center, and as I have said and other people have noted, the school may have been closed, but the children went to another school. They went to the prosecutor's school, and they learned.
These fantastic stories, if any of them were true, these kids would have been talking about them during the school year. These kids wouldn't have kept quiet and have to go through training sessions with investigators to come up with them.
There was no deliberation in all of this. There was no malice. What we were caught up in was a word we've heard a lot about. It was hysteria.
There was not mass hysteria.
This woman's child was at WeCare.
None of the parents wanted to believe that this had occurred, and they did everything possible to convince themselves that this had not occurred.
During her trial, Kelly Michaels was represented by public defenders, and some who've reviewed the record have called the defense weak.
Once you have seen an innocent person in jail, it is a life-changing experience.
For a while, her only defender wasn't even a lawyer.
Once you see it, it's different from hearing about it.
Reporter Dorothy Rabinowitz began researching the case.
I saw her convicted with not a single effort made to begin an appeal.
So what'd you do?
I made two promises. One was that I would publish this story in a national magazine to get it all out. And the other was that I would get her an attorney.
Was it tough to sell lawyers on taking this case?
Tough, it was impossible. If you tried to take a 10.5-month trial without money, try to mount an appeal and ask a lawyer, who's got the money to do that?
Finally, she found one.
I thank God for Morton Davis.
I knew as soon as I met him. He called me up every morning and would say to me, did this really happen?
Morton Stavis, a New York lawyer, prepared the appeal. But then, just before he was to argue the case, he died.
I hate the way that I came into it, but I think it's worked well. Hello? My name's Robert Rosenthal. I'm Kelly Michaels' attorney.
It was then up to Stavis's assistant, Robert Rosenthal, to argue Kelly Michaels' appeal.
My first appellate appearance was this case.
And he was fresh out of law school.
First time in court?
I'd been in court a few times before that, but nothing like this. It's just small motions, and I've been in housing court before that, but nothing like this.
Meanwhile, the expense of the appeal threatened to stall it.
Thank God I'm a man of means, and I can tell you that even when you have money, justice is very expensive.
New York billionaire Leonard Stern began donating to the defense after he read about it in Harper's Magazine.
I think that the awful part of hysteria is that the people involved in it believe it. The children, the parents, the prosecutor, a large segment of the community.
But this is a woman you've never met.
It's the principle.
You didn't know she was guilty or innocent.
If it could happen to her, it could happen to any of us.
What kind of work are you going to do?
Investigators, the experts.
The appeals court that overturned Michael's conviction spent 29 pages criticizing the way the children were questioned. But there were other legal grounds for the reversal. First, the appeals court said the judge prejudiced the jury by allowing the children to sit in his lap and occasionally whispering to them while they testified. The court said, quote, a juror could feel that he was personally offending the judge if he voted for Michaels. And the appeals court also objected to the fact that certain symptoms the children were exhibiting, like bedwetting and nightmares, were considered evidence of abuse. The judges said it was not fair to Kelly Michaels to take behaviors that might be normal and use them to prove abuse.
Are they going to retry Kelly Michaels?
I don't know. I hope they're not. It was a tremendous injustice the first time, to Kelly Michaels certainly, to the children. I would hate to see these parents put their children through that again.
But attorney Robert Rosenthal says he believes he'd win an acquittal for Kelly Michaels this time.
I think it became clear fairly early on that we were dealing with a client that we felt was an innocent woman. The testimony was ludicrous.
We will vigorously pursue all of the appellate rights that we have.
But Essex County Prosecutor Clifford Minor says a new trial may not even be necessary if the Supreme Court throws out Michael's reversal.
We will be going to the Supreme Court very shortly.
Most observers believe the Supreme Court will let the reversal stand, and with much of the evidence now suspect, it will be difficult to win another conviction against Kelly Michaels.
What's hard for people to believe is that responsible prosecutors, people who are elected to office, that judges, that all these people would allow 9 months worth of trial to go on over charges that are just made up. People think there has to be something to this.
Before this, I would have said, oh, I would have been just like that. That's would have been my opinion. Of course they wouldn't have prosecuted a fraudulent case. Of course they wouldn't have manipulated these children, the parents. Of course they wouldn't have treated my life like it was nothing until they railroaded the Constitution and created this monster out of nothing. But I watched them do it over the course of these years. I've seen them do it. It's what happened. And I'm not the only one that this has happened to.
Later, Kelly Michaels and her family start their lives over.
Ahead on 48 Hours.
I remember playing the naked lady game.
Another daycare molestation case.
They were prostituted.
I knew my story and I knew the truth.
10 years later.
It's strange, it's upsetting.
And
you're telling the child what the truth is.
How children can be made to believe.
How did she touch you?
Make believe.
Just like that? She did, really?
Ever wonder how far you could get on $19? Where you could go? And what you could see? Well, now's the perfect time to find out. Because right now, Alamo is offering a special low rate on an economy car with unlimited free mileage for just $19 a day. We call it Alamo's Great American Rate. One low rate that's good anywhere in America. And at $19, you never know where you could end up.
Is there any question in your mind it happened?
No, I know what happened.
48 Hours will continue. This is CBS.
I remember being tied up to a pole with this girl named Emily.
There was an explosion of daycare sex abuse scandals like the Kelly Michaels case in the last decade.
I remember playing the naked lady game.
The most notorious, perhaps the one that ignited them all, happened at the McMartin preschool in Manhattan Beach, California.
Someone killed a horse in front of you?
Yeah.
Where?
That was at a farm. That was part of the scare tactics. You know, this could happen to your mom and dad if you tell about anything that's happened.
And who killed the horse?
Ray, Bucky.
It began 10 years ago with a single accusation of child abuse against one teacher, Raymond Bucky.
I have a daughter who has massive evidence of being raped and being sodomized.
But it quickly grew.
More than 100 counts of child with 208 counts of child
until there were 7 defendants.
More than 300 charges.
And hundreds of charges.
I think adults have had a lot of influence on their children.
Raymond Bucky, his sister Peggy Ann,
Hi.
their mother Peggy McMartin Bucky, grandmother Virginia McMartin, and 3 teachers were all charged with sexually abusing 18 children at the McMartin preschool.
It was a prestigious school in the area. It had a waiting list. And
Kevin Cody, publisher of a local newspaper.
Virginia McMartin was the Manhattan Beach Woman of the Year 2 or 3 years prior to the investigations.
Witnessed the wave of sex abuse charges that washed over the entire beach community.
Do you know, altogether, including McMartin, how many schools in this area closed because of allegations of child abuse?
7.
And was anyone ever convicted?
No.
All right, we are ready for the jury.
Raymond Bucky and his mother Peggy were the only McMartin defendants to stand trial.
As to counts 3.
On January 18, 1990.
8, count 9, count 12.
After 124 13, witnesses.
Count 14.
1,000 pieces of evidence.
Count 56. Count 57.
And $15 million of taxpayers' money.
Count 59.
The longest and most expensive criminal trial in U.S. history came to an end.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the very defendants not guilty. Yeah.
This is all that's left of the McMartin preschool. It was torn down in 1990. The children, the 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds who said they were molested, are teenagers now. The defendant, Ray Bucky, and his family lost their home and moved to a town just south of here. It's all over, and yet it's not.
Are you still angry?
Yeah, I'm still angry. I don't make that a part of my life, you know, to dwell on that and say, you know, my God, I gotta somehow get my revenge. But I'm angry, you know, very angry. It shouldn't go on. That kind of stuff should not go on. It shouldn't happen.
I want people to know that it did go on and that it still does and that it probably still will go on.
Brian Stafford was one of the star witnesses against Ray Bucky.
It mattered to me, of course, what the jury said, but I knew in my heart that no matter what they said, I knew my story and I knew the truth.
At one point, he spent 16 days on the witness stand.
I had really expected a guilty verdict, and I was pretty upset, yeah. I think we all were.
Probably the most, not horrifying, but most vivid anger that I have is these older people taking advantage sexually of small kids. It's strange, it's upsetting, and it's just, that really got on my nerves. I had a hard time dealing with that.
Seeing it happen to someone else?
So having it happen to me, having them, you know, take advantage of me sexually as a small child, it really just kind of shocked me, but I knew it happened.
She looks so little. She's so little, and I don't know how
anybody could hurt such a little kid.
Mary Mae Chiaffi's daughter, Elizabeth, was 3 when she attended the McMartin preschool. She's 13 now. What's the Naked Lady game?
I don't really remember what we did. I just remember that that's what it was called, and that we would all be naked and the girls and boys would stand in lines and they'd take pictures of us while we were on stage. And I remember tunnels. They were kind of like a subway tunnel, but it was along like a circular tunnel, and there were lamps, like the oil lamps, every so often, and it was a dark tunnel, and there were pictures of the devil on the wall.
And the tunnel went right on across, all the way over to this wall.
The kids talked about passageways under the school and rooms under the school.
Jackie McGauley says her daughter was also abused at McMartin and also mentioned tunnels.
The tunnel went in like this.
10 years later, she and a private investigator are still digging for proof.
We were probing all over the school trying to find some evidence of tunnels, and it was like finding a needle in a haystack, really.
In 1985, the district attorney looked for tunnels at the site but found no sign of them.
And why do you think that you were able to find something that the prosecutors couldn't find?
And the tunnels were actually under the school building. The prosecutors came in about 2 or 3 days and lifted tile, and they didn't see any indication that there was any break in the floor, and that's all they did.
This was the wall, the west wall.
After the acquittals, Ted Gunderson helped Jackie McGauley
And the backhoe went straight down about
lead an excavation at the McMartin site. They say the dig revealed that tunnels once existed under the school.
3. It was about almost a 50-foot tunnel.
When you found these tunnels, they weren't actual tunnels. They weren't intact at the time.
They'd been filled.
How were they filled?
We never could figure out how they were filled, but I know it was done very professionally. There's artificial fill here. It's foreign to the other soil that's in the native soil that's in this area.
And what do you think that tunnel was used for?
Well, the children said that they were taken down into the tunnel and brought up into this triplex next door, and then they were placed in cars and taken out into the communities and prostituted.
Does that seem possible to you?
I would say it's possible. We found the tunnels.
At the McGauley home, more reminders of the McMartin nightmare.
Where did these come from?
Play yard.
These were toys that were actually in the play yard? Mm-hmm. Is that hard, though, for your daughter to see parts of that school in her own backyard?
Well, she lived on the school pretty much for a month while we were doing the project. So like I said before, I think we worked through all of that.
We had to sleep down there at night with the kids.
This is the sign from the school? Where is that now?
We've got it in storage.
What's the significance of holding on to all of this?
A lot of kids were called liars. A lot of kids don't feel that they can hold their heads up. They don't feel like they can talk about what happened and deal with their problems. There's a lot of problems associated with what happened at the school. I don't care about the trial. I don't care about the defendants. I do care about the kids.
What good does this do, though?
To hold on to the sign, what good does it do to hold on to the sign? It's just there. I'm not really holding on to it.
Just as there are families with strong feelings about the McMartin case, there are those with serious doubts.
There's no case. The case should never have gone to trial.
Newspaperman Cody covered the McMartin trial and says the real culprits in the case were the social workers that investigated the early McMartin complaints.
In my opinion, the therapist led the kids into making these false disclosures.
Do you think those kids were abused?
There is no evidence presented, to my mind, that the kids were abused.
I mean, I don't know how many times over the years I've thought, well, maybe they really did. Maybe they did brainwash our kids, and this is all just a bunch of baloney, and we'll just wake up from this bad dream. But the reality, I don't think that's the reality.
Is there any question in your mind it happened?
No, I know what happened.
Is it possible at all, when you look back now, that some of these memories you have are memories that the therapist told you about, that may not be your own memories?
For me, no, there's no doubt. People will try and convince you that, hey, this didn't happen to you. Look at this. They told you that. It's simply not the truth. And it's, the topic gets old. That's what happened, and that's what I said. And you believe me or not, it's fine. But I'm going to still say it to this day.
Guess that really was me, Elizabeth Ashley. And then I lost 25 pounds in only 12 weeks on the Ultra Slim Fast plan with these delicious ready-to-drink shakes. There's scrumptious chocolate, French vanilla, luscious new strawberry, and a rich, creamy coffee. The plan is easy. A shake for breakfast, one for lunch, and a sensible dinner. Even a candy bar is a snack. And if it works for me, it can work for you.
Ultra Slim Fast. Give us a week. We'll take off the weight.
Here are some more firsts where First Interstate Bank just can't help you. But there are firsts where First Interstate can be a big help, like helping you fix up your house to make it the home you really want. We'll do everything possible to help you with that. And because there's so many times when no one can help you, when it comes to banking, come to First Interstate Bank, and we'll go out of our way to help you, as long as we can.
We'd like to make 2 points in this Avis commercial. First, when you rent using our preferred service, you don't go wait in line, you don't go through any paperwork, and you don't go to any counter. You just go to your car. With someone there to help, you'll be on your way fast. Think of it as speed with a personal touch. Which makes my second point, that the employee owners of Avis really do try harder.
What could a minute cost if your 800 service goes down? If you're a player on Wall Street, $910,000. But with us, you're always in the game. Introducing the AT&T 800 service Never Miss a Call Guarantee. Now if there's a problem, we can reroute your calls in less than a second. Sign up for the Never Miss a Call Guarantee. It's the #1 reason AT&T 800 service is always the smartest play. AT&T, the best in the business. Guaranteed.
Listen up, folks. Healthcare reform is coming, and when you get sick, a nurse like Sister Sonia may be the only person you see.
I hate to say I'm a country doctor, but that's what the feeling feels like.
So, will you ever see a real doctor? Find out on a special series, Healthcare Reform, Prescription for Change, tomorrow on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
To save a young boy's life.
He slipped into a coma.
How will a town come together?
This is none of your business. You're not the only one who loves that boy.
Dr. Quinn, Saturday.
Right, when you were with the teacher, Chantal, did she touch you at all? Where did she touch you? On the nose? Okay, pretend I'm Lauren and you're the teacher. How did you show me? Show me on my face. How did she touch you? Just like that? She did, really?
4-year-old Lauren remembers it clearly.
Did it feel ticklish or kind of fun?
Kind of fun.
But the event she remembers, a researcher touching her on the nose, never happened. Instead, she was told that it happened.
Could you hold this for me just for a second? Then I asked you to hold that little plastic box for me. After you held it for me, I touched your nose with my finger and I said, thank you very much. Okay?
And not only does she believe it, she can make you believe it too.
Show me again. The only time she touched you was how? Show me how. How did she do it? Bing, like that.
Lauren is part of an experiment designed by psychology professor Kathy Pezdek at the Claremont Graduate School.
In the lab where we know what really happened, we want to know what factors affect the suggestibility of children's memory. Touching on the nose is quite unusual. It doesn't happen very often in life. And it is unusual, it's well remembered, and if the child in acting out this event actually shows you something that didn't occur, it's because that's in their memory.
Okay, now I'm going to read you another description.
There is a reason for subjecting children to this kind of research. The reason is sex abuse. Many cases are clear-cut. In others, there is only a child's word. And if the truth can be altered in a lab, can it also be altered in real life? No one was asking that question 10 years ago, when the McMartin preschool case shook California. Today, experts are still debating the truth of the graphic stories told by the children.
The fact is, in the McMartin case, there is not one shred of evidence that any child was ever molested.
Dr. Lee Coleman, a psychiatrist, studied the transcripts of the children's interviews and testified on behalf of one of the McMartin defendants in a civil suit.
There is a mountain of evidence to show why the children said what they did. They were directly trained and prodded by their interviewers repeatedly over and over again.
This is an interview that was done during the McMartin case.
Yes, I've watched the videotape of this interview.
And here is a child who says, I don't think he did it to me. He denies that anything happened. And the interviewer then says, well, you'd be amazed when you start thinking.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, why don't you read the rest of that sentence? I think that's real important. Because the interviewer says, you'd be amazed when you start thinking, and the puppets start thinking some of the stuff they can remember.
What's wrong with that?
Because basically what you are doing is you're saying to the child, number one, I really want you to end up telling me something. So you're telling the child what you think the truth is.
Reports of suspected child sexual abuse have risen dramatically in the past 5 years.
This is a video on how to talk to a child when sex abuse is suspected. It was made by social worker Key McFarland.
Hi, Julie.
One of the first people to interview the McMartin school children. While she is frequently criticized for suggestive questioning in that case, she defends her methods.
There's usually no physical evidence. And if there is, there aren't fingerprints on children that you can, trace to someone. They tend to not tell unless they have very direct questioning. Even then, they often don't tell.
If a child is afraid to admit to sex abuse, won't a therapist have to encourage and pull out and continue?
If you knew that the child was molested, that would be true, but since you don't know whether they've been molested, what you're now doing is you're now creating the situation which is going to cause children who have not been molested to ultimately say they were.
The problem is that children, because they don't complain, they don't fight back, and they generally don't tell, and they often aren't believed, make very good victims in these cases, but not such very good witnesses.
In the McMartin case, there were so many doubts about the way the children were interviewed that not one of the defendants was convicted. And the jury is still out on a much larger question.
I wasn't there, so I need you to tell me exactly what happened, okay?
Can an interviewer lead a child to describe sex abuse that never happened?
There's tremendous individual differences in children. Some children are very verbal and will tell you a lot, and others won't.
Gail Goodman is a psychologist at the University of California. In her research, Goodman has tried to create situations that might occur in a sex abuse investigation, although none of these children have been abused.
I'm a police officer. We wanted to see whether having them first talk to a police officer who implied something bad might have happened, if it would change the children's responses to those kinds of questions.
Nothing bad did happen. The children just played with a babysitter. 11 days later, they are questioned directly.
Was the babysitter a man or a woman?
A man.
And suggestively.
He took all of your clothes off, didn't he? No?
In general, children in our studies have been highly accurate on those more abuse-related questions.
Where do they tend to be the most inaccurate?
Oh, they're often the most inaccurate about peripheral details, what color the rug was on the floor, about timing, age of people, weight, anything that again uses an adult unit of measurement.
But if Goodman's findings indicate children are accurate about sex abuse, other researchers say repeated questions can cause children to change their stories.
At one point, the interviewer says, the babysitter was quite fat, wasn't he?
The man was very fat, wasn't he? Yes.
And even though the babysitter wasn't, was he answering that to please the questioner?
Sometimes it is to try and please the interviewer, go along with what the person's saying. You can also sometimes get some flights of fantasy. The child could be talking about the wrong event.
In Lauren's case, for example, it's very difficult to sort out why she is remembering that she was touched on the nose when in fact she had not been. Well, it was in a previous question, so that's where it came from.
I touched your nose with my finger and I said, thank you very much.
When children are questioned about what happened in a real sexual abuse case, it's important to not include any of the specific details about the abuse. If the sexual details are in the questions, then forevermore it's impossible for us to know whether those details were implanted by suggestibility or whether those details are really there because they were really observed.
And so society faces a very difficult challenge of how to protect children from abuse, and at the same time, how to make sure people aren't getting falsely accused.
For 30 years, Marshal Matt Dillon fought to preserve the law in Dodge City. Now he's falsely accused of murder.
My father's dead. We're not stopping until I've got Dillon.
And he must fight to clear his name.
God bless you, Matt Dillon.
Likely to be some real trouble here.
Ali McGraw and James Arness, Gunsmoke, The Long Ride, Saturday.
Because all pain is not the same. You need something made just for your pain. Now there's aspirin-free Bayer Select. 5 completely different products, each made with specially chosen ingredients to concentrate on your kind of pain. Sinus, headache, nighttime, menstrual, or arthritis pain relief. Bayer Select. Exactly what's right for exactly what's wrong.
It's hot, or it's not. It's mild, or it's wild. It's a little of this, or a lot of that. It's what you make it, however you take it. Ortega. It's mix to the max.
They're out there in record numbers, united in their respect for technology and disdain for gimmickry, driven by thought rather than ego. Everywhere you look, there are signs of intelligent life. They are among us. They are our neighbors. They could be you.
Through it all, the arrest, 9 months of trial, 5 years in jail, Kelly Michael's family has stood by her. Now it's time to think about the future.
Is this over for you now?
No, probably not. No.
Can you go through that again?
If I have to endure this for however long, I will somehow hold on until this is over and my life is returned to me fully. So I know I will have to keep fighting to make that possible so I can have my life back in my own hands. Life is so precious, such a wonderful gift, and you only have it once. So I'm certainly not going to let this sort of destroy my life.
There's just never been any instant of doubt about her innocence.
Nobody, none of us, had one doubt at any time about
well, for us,
her, because it was all ridiculous.
24 hours after her release, the Michaels family sat down together to start looking ahead.
So where do things stand with you now, today? I mean, is things back to normal?
The important thing is for her to begin her life now.
How do you help her?
What I want to do, I want her to do what she wants to do. I want her to be able to turn left or right or go straight ahead every minute of her life from now on and not have anybody else tell her what she can and cannot do. And that's, I think, for me, the most important thing. I don't want to be any part of telling her, well, you need to do this now, you need to do that now. It's going to be her life from now on.
People 5 years telling her what to do. She doesn't have that anymore. She can fly.
And when it started, she was on her way.
I guess because they know me since
she was on her way.
She was on her way to doing something before this started.
She's exactly the same person she was 7 years ago. She's just the same. I mean, it was so clear to me last night. But the things that we said and the little family jokes and all of that, it was just, she's just so intact. Her personality's intact. She's intact. And I know that she'll do wonderful things.
There are many people who believe that Kelly Michaels is innocent. But then, in this case, in the McMartin case, and in so many others, there are the children. It's frightening to think that children who have been abused might not be believed when they report it. But when a child repeatedly says nothing happened, it's also scary to think that suggestion could make him believe something did happen. That there may be children who have never been touched who ultimately believe in their hearts that they have been abused.
Which bad thing? How do you know about the bad thing?
Prosecutors are petitioning the New Jersey Supreme Court to reinstate the conviction of Kelly Michaels. Meantime, she remains under arrest, free on bail, but still facing more than 100 counts of child molestation. In the wake of the Michaels case and other daycare cases before it, some investigators are more cautious in questioning children about sex abuse. But there's no standard for these interrogations. And experts say the tragedy of the Kelly Michaels case could happen again. I'm Dan Rather, and that's 48 Hours. Coming up next, your late local news. But first, here's a look ahead to our next report.
You're here, that's it. You're not going to get out of here until they let you out of here.
Americans in foreign jails.
Death is cheap here. Everything is cheap here.
A living hell.
You have to do what they want you to do.
A crying shame.
If you don't sleep with somebody, you don't have a place to stay.
You got the right to don't say anything.
Lost behind bars.
I hope I'll be out of here alive someday.
Next week.
Old friends reunite one last time as a story spanning 14 years comes to an end. 1 week from tomorrow, don't miss a special 1-hour look at the past and the 2-hour series finale of Knots Landing. Thanks for making CBS America's most watched network. Now get ready for your local news.
For a transcript of this program, send $5 to 48 Hours Transcripts, Box 7, Livingston, New Jersey, 07039. And to order a VHS cassette of tonight's broadcast, call 1-800-338-4847.
Experience CBS News.
Ex-cops Gina McKay and Holly Williams are too hot to handle.
If I want you to kiss me, you'll know it.
Tonight on CBS Late Night, watch out for dangerous curves.
This is CBS.